As soon as I found out that I was pregnant, I started thinking about how I was going to prepare my dog for this massive life change. Nira has always liked kids, but living with a newborn 24/7 is much different than short visits with family and friends. I knew that it would be a huge transition for her, and I wanted to make it as stress-free as possible for everyone's sake, including mine. Change is always hard, so the less that your dog associates the change as being caused by the baby, the more likely they are to accept their new family member. I'm so glad that I spent the time preparing Nira, and now I want to share 7 things that I would suggest doing to get your dog ready for a baby. The very first is a vet check. I strongly encourage you to take your dog to the vet prior to the baby's arrival for a full physical exam. Similar to how we aren't our best selves if we are injured or unwell, if your dog is struggling with any underlying pain or discomfort, that is going to make them less accepting of a new stressor in the home. It's important to address any of those issues right away. My dog Nira is in great health, but she is 10 years old. In discussions with her vet, we decided to keep her on the fish oil that I was already using, and we also added a joint supplement to improve her comfort and mobility. I also learned that dogs can pass roundworms to humans and that those can be particularly harmful to children under the age of 5. At my vet's recommendation, I started Nira on a monthly dewormer before Emma was born. I encourage you to check with your vet if there's anything specific that they would recommend for your dog. Tip 2 is to get your dog used to baby items. Dogs are creatures of habit and routine, so new large items suddenly appearing can be a stressor. By introducing baby items now, it helps your dog adjust to things such as the bassinet, the bouncy chair, and the stroller prior to your baby coming home. The more that you can help your dog adjust to any changes around the house prior to your baby's arrival, the smoother and less stressful it will be when your baby does come home. Tip 3 is sound conditioning. Dogs have more sensitive hearing than humans do, and they can also hear sounds that are both higher and lower in frequency. This means that a baby's shrill cry can be extremely upsetting to a dog. By working on sound conditioning prior to the baby coming home, you can help your dog with one of the largest stressors that they're going to have. Luckily, it is quite simple to build positive associations and help your dog adjust to the sound of a baby crying. To do so, I suggest finding a soundtrack of babies crying on YouTube and then slowly increase the difficulty as you teach your dog that the crying sound predicts a delicious treat. My dog Nira is extremely sound sensitive, so this was a particular focus of ours. I previously filmed a stepwise tutorial showing how I worked on a prior noise phobia of Nira's. To get your dog used to a baby's crying, I suggest following the same steps that I outlined in that tutorial, which I'll link in the caption. Tip 4 is to teach new rules and routines as soon as possible. We never want our dog to associate the baby as the reason for their displacement. Therefore, I suggest trying to think of what rules and routines you will allow and make changes immediately if you think that the baby is going to interfere with any of them. For example, will you still be okay with your dog on the couch or on the bed once the baby arrives? Are there rooms or areas that your dog will not be allowed in anymore? Will your dog be sequestered to a room or certain areas when guests come over to meet the baby? Will your dog need to ride in a new location during car rides now that there's a car seat? Try to really imagine what day-to-day life will look like once your baby arrives and then decide which boundaries and rules need to change now. By making those adjustments prior to your baby's arrival, you can help your dog accept their new normal rather than feeling like it was the baby that displaced them. Tip number 5 is make a plan for how you'll meet your dog's needs once the baby arrives. Babies are very time-consuming and they will demand the majority of your attention. Therefore, it's really important to recognize that you'll be unable to offer your dog as much time and attention, particularly during the newborn phase. Even though I expected that, I was still surprised how much guilt I felt when it actually occurred. I'm going to make a separate video about how I managed those feelings of guilt and what helped me, but I strongly encourage you to make a plan for how you'll navigate meeting your dog's needs when your time and attention are elsewhere. For me, this meant 3 things. First, I stocked up on new enrichment toys so that Nira would have access to fun new ways of entertaining herself. I also pre-filled all of the items before Emma was born so that I could easily grab one and offer it to Nira whenever I wanted to without any effort. Second, I wanted to make sure that Nira's exercise needs would be met, so my husband and I made a plan for when he would walk her each day until I was recovered enough to go on dog and baby walks by myself. If you're going to rely on a doggy daycare or a dog walker to exercise your dog, try to introduce those prior to your baby's arrival so that your dog can get accustomed to them. I also made this video that suggests other ways of meeting your dog's needs when you're unable to go on long walks, and that might help you out as well. I'll link that here and in the caption. I have a quick request. If you're enjoying this video, I would really appreciate if you hit like and left a comment to let me know. Thank you so much. And third, I requested that when friends and family came over to meet Emma, they also spent time cuddling and petting Nira to replace some of the affection that I was now less able to personally offer. Tip number 6 to get your dog ready for a baby is to spend time teaching valuable training skills immediately. We need to remember that it's unfair of us to get frustrated or mad at our dogs for skills that we want them to have, but that we haven't actually personally dedicated any time to teaching them. Since you will have less time and patience for training once the baby arrives, I strongly encourage you to think of what skills need training or refreshing now. There are 4 skills in particular that I think you should consider. Teaching place or go to bed. Nira knows that place means lie on any one of her blankets or beds that's in that room and stay there until I release her.
Nira, place. Yes.
Having place trained on verbal cue has come in handy many times. If you want a tutorial for how I taught this skill, let me know in the comments. Polite greetings. If your dog jumps on you or on guests, it's important to address that before the baby arrives for both frustration and safety. I have a step-by-step tutorial for how I train dogs not to jump up, which I'll link both here and in the caption. Leash skills. It's hard enough to walk with a dog and a baby even when your dog has excellent leash skills. If your dog pulls on leash, if they chase animals, if they eat random things that they find on the sidewalk, or if they're reactive, it'll be more challenging to include them on walks, so it's important to address those issues now. If you're struggling with any of those concerns, please let me know in the comments and I'll direct you to videos that should help you out. I also encourage you to check out my 6 Weeks to Dream Walks guide that I've linked in the caption if you want a step-by-step training program to follow. In an upcoming video, I'm going to share all the specific tips that I have for walking with a dog and a baby, including the training and preparation that I personally did with Nira before Emma was born, so hit subscribe if you want to watch that. Window reactivity. If your dog barks at sounds and sights outside of your home, consider how much that's going to bother you if they bark and they wake up the baby. If the answer is a lot, start training that as soon as you can. I'm going to be sharing 2 tutorials for how I address window reactivity, and I'll link those in the caption once they're posted. And tip 7 is, if possible, give your dog opportunities to be around kids now to build positive associations. Your newborn is not going to stay a baby forever. They will grow up and they're going to learn to walk and interact with your dog, so it can be really helpful to offer small positive exposures to toddlers and children now to get your dog used to it. For example, if you have a friend with a toddler, invite them over. Rather than encouraging your dog to interact with the young child, instead, I would mark and reward your dog for watching the toddler calmly while you build positive associations and you teach your dog that they can give the toddler space. If there are older kids that your dog could meet, ask those kids to help your training by reinforcing the behaviors that you want, such as sitting for greetings, while you closely supervise. It's easier to start building good behaviors and positive associations to kids of various ages now, while you can really focus on your dog. I hope that this video gave you ideas for how to prepare your dog for their new family member, and it makes that transition as stress-free as possible. It's important to remember that dogs are creatures of habit and routine. While we humans may know many months in advance that the baby is coming, for dogs it can feel like an immediate shock to their life. Any preparation that you can do ahead of time is a huge kindness to your dog, and it's well worth the effort. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions. If you have found this video helpful, please consider sharing it so that it can help other expectant parents and their dogs. In my next video, I'm going to be explaining how I introduced my dog and my baby, so hit subscribe if you want to watch that. I will link my entire dog and baby playlist here. Happy training! I'll see you in the next video.